Hello, Captain Don Hill. Welcome and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. You have a very exciting upcoming project, your Avro. But first, can you just tell everyone a little bit about yourself, who you are, and how this all came to be?
Yeah, hi Megan. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for taking time to interview us. Actually,
Of course.
a little bit about me. Okay, so I've been flying my whole life since I left school, which was millennia ago. Actually, literally at least one. But I'm retired now. I hit 65, and I retired out of Qantas as a Qantas 787 captain, which was a fabulous job. And it gave me the opportunity to spend time investigating other little corners of aviation. And I just love, I'm going to coin this phrase and I want everyone to know it. This is aviation archaeology we're doing. So,
Aviology, I believe, is the technical term.
oh, okay. Yeah, aviology. Well, that's what we're doing here is aviology.
I like it.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
And yeah, I've done a few little projects over the years. But this one is really important because we were lucky enough to trip over this particular engine. And if you're listening to this, then no doubt you had a little read about our website. So it's probably, I think it's probably the most important engine, certainly the most important aero engine in Australia, and maybe one of the most important aero engines in the world.
And so what makes you say that? That feels like a big call. What makes this one the most historically important?
Well, I think it's two prongs to it. One is that it's so rare.
Hmm.
So the engine we're talking about was made by the Sunbeam Car Company. So if I'm allowed to say Maxwell Smart, you might remember in his early days, he drove a Sunbeam sports car. So people think about the Sunbeam cars, but in the 1920s, Sunbeam were actually making aeroplane engines. And one of them, the six-cylinder engine, is called a Dyak. They didn't make a lot of them. The original script shows that they only made about 50 or 60 of these engines, and 16 of them came to Australia. Pardon me, but of those 16 that came to Australia, only 11 ended up actually in aeroplanes. They were designed for aeroplanes and airships in Japan. And as far as we know, there's only three of these left in the world. The other part of this one that makes it so important is that this one was fitted to the first aeroplane that Qantas ever owned. So this is Qantas's first ever engine. If you imagine how many aeroplanes they've had through the years, they've had a lot of engines.
Right. Okay, so then how did this very historically important and alarmingly rare engine come into the hands of you and David Teese?
Well, yeah, that was kind of. I came on the back of doing something else. I was doing another project, another aviology project, if you will, and one of the two men who started Qantas. Really, there were three men that started Qantas, but there were two pilots who came back from World War One. One of those, a fellow by the name of Paul McGuinness. I had the luxury of talking to his daughter before she passed several years ago, and in the course of that conversation over other things, um, this engine came up in the discussion. We were over in Perth and where she lived, and we're having a talk. And she said, "Oh, Pop's engine's out at the Bull Creek Aviation Museum." And I said, "Oh, yeah, look, I've seen it. I know it's," and hanging on the front of it was a sign that said, "This is like the first engine from Qantas," but it didn't say that it was. And I said, yeah, I'm sure that's like, but yeah. And she said, no, that's Pop's engine. And she was dogmatic about it. Anyway, roll forward and I was doing other stuff and things that we had talked about. And I'd gone and checked in other sources. She was right about everything. And I was like, could she be right about the engine? So one of the things that happened then was I tripped over a copy of the logbook for the aeroplane in the Queensland archives in the State Library. And it was, you can't actually go and touch it. It's a very rare book, but I have had the luxury of being able to be right with it though. But it's digitized online and I'm going through it. This is going back a number of years and it would take forever to load a page. So it took forever to go through it. And one day I came across the engine number and I'd taken a photo of this engine over there and I was like, this is the engine. So Pauline was right all along. It was Pop's engine, and so that's how we discovered it. And then we went about trying to convince the museum to sell it to us. In the end, we did a horse trade. We did a swap. And they said that all that they wanted for it was a Merlin engine. It had to have been either, out of a Spitfire or something like that, but it had to be running so that they could start it on the weekends and make lots of noise and all that. So we hunted around, and as luck would have it, we found one we could buy, and then shipped it to Perth, and they shipped back the Sunbeam Dyak engine. So
Amazing.
they,
Unbelievable. Okay,
hmm,
so you are now in possession of the engine, but does the airplane itself still exist? And if so, how much of it does and where is it?
all very good questions. We don't know the answers to a lot of it.
Okay,
What the answer I do know is no, it doesn't exist anymore.
okay.
And we have been searching and searching, trying to find anything from it. I'm hoping too that these sorts of things if we can get these stories out there, that maybe somebody has something sitting on the mantelpiece, or that they go, oh well, I know Uncle Fred had that connection to the aeroplane. He was a mechanic when they were tearing it apart, and he brought this bit home. So anything like that would just be gold to us.
Amazing.
The aeroplane spent about 4 years with Qantas from 1920 through to 23, 24, and then went down to it was based out at Longreach, where Qantas began its operations, and then the aeroplane went to Newcastle. It was used as variously as a training aircraft for pilots and also for joy flights. So it had a bit of a life there, and then it changed hands a couple of times. Another engine was swapped into it, and then the story sort of dribbles away, and we think that the aeroplane was last, probably the bits of it were picked up and taken to the rubbish tip from somewhere in that Newcastle area. So
Okay.
uh,
Well,
would
you
be
never
great to find
know.
any bits.
That's right. And having these conversations and broadcasting this to a slightly wider audience, you just don't know who knows what and who has what in their back shed, or someone else's pop might know something. But
Yeah, well, that's right.
that's right. And one more question for you. So when did this engine last run?
Well, we believe that, as I said before, in the last bits of history we can find about the aeroplane, they swapped a different type of engine in, and this one came out. And we reckon that that was the last time it ran. It was damaged. So it's a very unique aeroplane engine. If you've seen TV shows and movies with old aeroplanes, biplanes. It's like the one you can see in my background there. In fact, that is a model of the original Qantas aeroplane. So biplane, two, three passengers. They would start the aeroplane by throwing the propeller. So you'd have one person in the cockpit to turn on the switches, and the other one would stand there and pull the propeller through. And it was like, that's it, that's it.
Mhm.
In my younger days, I learned how to do that on airplanes too. It's not for
Oh
the
no.
faint-hearted, nor is it safe. Well, it's safe if you do it right. But anyway, this airplane it was a little bit different in that and this was part of the reason why they were fitted. You needed somebody to help you do it. You needed somebody in the cockpit and somebody throwing a propeller. This
Yeah.
airplane had a crank handle, like you might see on a vintage car,
Yeah.
that came out the back of the engine and moved into the cockpit where the pilot was. So you could sit in the cockpit and start the engine with the crank handle from behind. Yeah,
Amazing. That is very
yeah,
genius.
it is ingenious.
Much
But what we
more,
think
much more.
happened was, what we think happened was there was a little engagement lever, so that once you'd started, you didn't want this thing flogging around in there while you're trying to fly. So it had a little engagement lever and a clutch system. And we believe that maybe that was accidentally touched at some point while the engine was running, and it
Okay.
engaged and it broke the mechanism. And it was very hard to find parts for it, obviously, at the time. So the aeroplane engine came out. with all of about 200 or 300 operating hours on it,
Hmm.
and some other engine went in. And then the engine went into a whole history of its own between other owners, and it had some spurious dealings. So it's got its own fun little story in the background. But so, in terms of that engine running, we think it last ran in 1926. We believe that engines of the other 11 aeroplanes with those engines in them, they probably ran till about 1930.
Hmm.
And in the 1970s, one was restarted. But I am unaware of any audio of that engine running. So, to my knowledge, there's probably no one around who has ever heard one of those engines start except for that one in 1970. And there's no way of listening to it now. So we can't
Fascinating.
wait to start it and hear what it sounds like.
I bet. And to reveal the curtain, you and I are having this conversation April 16th, 2025. So I imagine if you were to start this engine in 2026, that would be the centenary. Would I be
Of
correct?
probably its last running. I
How
see what you're putting down
interesting.
there.
How interesting.
Yeah.
Seems like
So
that sounds like a nice goal. I like that.
yeah, and we're very close. We really are close. Since I've made the website, we've come a long way, and I probably do need to do some more updates like this. But the engine is now pretty much rebuilt, ready to go, and we've had it rebuilt to a standard so it can operate in the air, so it can legally be used in an aeroplane again.
Okay.
But for the moment, it's all about just doing it and making it run. We've found its original carburetors, and we've got a few little parts that we haven't nailed down yet, so we can't start it yet, Megan. We will get around to it though very soon. So I think you're right. I think Centenary will be a pretty awesome little deal for it.
Seems like some sort of celebration should happen when that time comes. But this is all
What do
very
you got?
exciting. And
What
I
should we
might,
do?
I don't know, let me noodle on it and see what I can come up with. Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, I'll take all advice,
Okay,
all
perfect.
suggestions.
Amazing. Well, this sounds
Yeah,
really exciting, and I'm looking forward. I know we have some upcoming conversations with some other people involved in the project, and looking forward to being able to share all of that information with everybody as soon as we can.
yeah. Well, look, thank you very much. This has really been good. I've enjoyed this. So,
Yeah,
with your permission, we'll put this on the website, and yeah, hopefully it
absolutely.
helps people understand a little bit more about the engine and why it's so important to us.
And I think what's so exciting is, I mean, I personally can feel just how passionate and how dedicated you are to this, and revealing the mystery around this is just really exciting. So I'm looking forward to learning a whole lot more about it myself.
Oh, that's good. We're kind of opening a book on its history, and we're learning more and more as we go along. So yeah, it's lovely that Dave and I are really good friends. Dave is also a Qantas captain, and though he's still working, I'm retired. But between the two of us, having the engine together, and it's a great little project for us, and we want everybody to be enthused and part of it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Megan.